I would like to also use the opportunity to thank His Excellency the President of the Arab Republic of Egypt and the good people of Egypt for the warm reception into their country, a very beautiful city in which we are. And on behalf of the people of Ghana and His Excellency the President, send you their warm regards. I must say that it's a pleasure that I've been given the platform to share our national effort in fighting corruption. I don't know how you call corruption. Some say it's a disease. In fact, some call it cancer. Some say it's canker. Some say it's an enterprise. I say it's a religion, which is consuming all other religions. It cuts across race and everything. And permit me to borrow from the words of our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who said, the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of Africa. I'm also of the conviction that the fight against corruption in our respective countries is meaningless and will not be won unless we fight corruption as a united Africa. We have to come together and fight corruption. Hence, I thank the government and the leadership of Egypt for bringing us together. Let me also draw attention to the fact that fighting corruption is dangerous. And corruption will fight you back at any time. Anyone who fights corruption should know that corruption will fight you. People have talked about different types of corruption. I don't really bother myself about the types, but I bother myself about the two actors of corruption. We have the domestic or the internal players and the international players. Well, individually, we may be able to try to reduce corruption or tame the domestic players, but the international players, as individual African countries, we cannot succeed against them unless we unite. Hence, I said we should fight corruption as united Africa. If you heard my colleague from Nigeria when he was talking about the monies repatriated into Nigeria, huge sums, none of them came from Africa. They were from outside Africa. So the key beneficiaries or the majority shareholders in that enterprise are usually outside Africa. Sometimes they are with us. Hence, it is difficult to fight corruption alone, as I said. In Ghana, we have the legal framework which enables us to fight corruption. The Constitution itself has got several provisions on fighting corruption, and one of them, which is the directive principle of state policy, captured under Article 35, Clause 8 of the Constitution, states that the state shall take steps to eradicate corrupt practices and abuse of power. And then there is another section which requires passing of a law to enable the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice to investigate corruption and abuse of power. So we have a lot in our Constitution. In addition to the Constitution, we have several provisions in the Audit Service Act, the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice Act, the Economic and Organized Crime Act, Anti-Money Laundering Act, Criminal Offenses Act, the Public Financial Management Act, the Public Procurement Amendment Act, the Public Financial Management Regulations, and also lately we have the Office of the Special Prosecutor, whose mandate is basically to prosecute corruption and corruption-related cases in the country. We also have institutional arrangements in place to fight corruption. And these institutions include the Ghana Audit Service that I lead as the Auditor General. We have the Ghana Police Service led by the Inspector General of Police, and the Minister for the Interior is here with us. We also have the Ministry of Justice, or the Attorney General's Department. We also have the Attorney General with us here. We have the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. We have the Economic and Organized Crime Office. We have the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And we have a very vibrant civil society who are all working towards fighting corruption. When it comes to implementation, I remember the fight has been on for several years, and one that I remember very vividly, which is likened to one of the logos on this wall, is that of His Excellency, the past President, John Agyekum Kufuor's zero tolerance for corruption, among other initiatives. The challenge was we didn't have a blueprint that we could look at and say, this is how we are fighting corruption. So Parliament on Thursday, the 26th of June, 2016, approved the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, which covered the period 2012 to 2020. We call it in short NACAP. So when I say NACAP, I'm referring to that action plan. And this action plan was to help us to take steps to tackle corruption and see if we can reduce or eradicate it. Ghana has also been party to the UN Convention Against Corruption, the African Union Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption, that of ECOWAS Protocol on Fighting Corruption. Ghana has been part of all this. And the membership of these bodies is in line with our international obligation and commitments, as well as to better implement anti-corruption laws and policies, especially if we have to tackle the international players that I referred to just now. And the report submitted by the Committee on Constitutional, Legal, and Parliamentary Affairs on NACAP, which is the action plan, stated that the plan integrates anti-corruption measures into the programs and activities of the public sector organizations and allows for collective action and sustained coordination of efforts, as well as the judicious application of resources to combat corruption. In that report, Parliament made it very clear that the action plan is not going to go anywhere unless we take reason of awareness and public education very seriously, and also resource the anti-corruption agencies. Otherwise, the action plan was not going to go anywhere. They also recommended if we can come out with a clearer and a wider definition of corruption to encompass and capture all aspects and types of corruption. I would like to zoom down now on the role of the audit service. It is my opinion and my view that the institution called Ghana Audit Service stands very tall when it comes to the fight against corruption in Ghana. I'm not told, but maybe that may be the reason why I was invited to participate in the International Anti-Corruption Conference in Copenhagen last year, and also invited maybe to this forum. As stated, Ghana Audit Service is mandated by law to audit all the public accounts of Ghana. But unlike the mandate of a usual Auditor General in the Westminster system, where you audit and just submit your report, the Constitution under Article 187, Clause 7 provides that in the performance of his function as the Auditor General, he may disallow any item of expenditure which is contrary to law and surcharge the officers responsible for it. I must say that on the 14th of June 2017, there was a landmark ruling at the Supreme Court of Ghana when a civil society group called Occupy Ghana took the Attorney General and the Auditor General to court to say that yes, our Constitution says Auditor General should disallow expenditures which are contrary to law, but almost 25 years down the line, we've not had one. So the court should compel the Auditor General to start doing that. And the judges, 7 of them unanimously ruled against us. So we lost the case on the 14th of June 2017. Actually, on Friday, we will be celebrating the 2nd anniversary of that case. Now, the Supreme Court also went further to come out with the rules or the constitutional instrument which will guide how to appeal against disallowances and surcharges. And following that, the Ghana Audit Service has been on the road auditing and disallowing expenditures that we are of the view are contrary to law. Actually, in January 2018, I issued a report to Parliament, and in that report, we had audited the liabilities of government and disallowed 5.4 billion Ghana cedis. Those who don't know the value of Ghana cedis can divide by 5. So it is equal to about 1.1 billion US dollars. We cancel all those debts. And as I speak, it remained largely canceled because the appeals are only 33 million and the amount was 5.479. So even the 79 million at the back has not been consumed yet. So the 5.4 billion still remain intact as we speak today. I must say this increased performance in disallowing some liabilities last year did not stop. We have gone ahead to disallow and surcharge other people, institutions, and individuals who have been found in the same situation, as a result of which early this year also I've issued a report to Parliament coming out with the total disallowances that I've made, close to 500 million again, and we have recovered 67 million Ghana cedis from the corporates. The good news is that the government of Ghana is resourcing the audit service of Ghana. When I took over office in 2016, the budget that was available to the service today has more than increased 3 times. So resources are being made available to the audit service to do its work. People ask, where is the magic coming from? I said, there's no magic. If you don't have money, if you are an anti-corruption agency and you are under-resourced, I don't think there is much you can do. So the government has given us budget to do our work. In fact, when there was a change in government in 2017, one of the first things the government did was to ban the procurement of vehicles. But when it came to audit service, government gave us the go-ahead to say, go ahead and buy your vehicles. So last year we bought 34 vehicles. And again, the government, I don't know whether officially or unofficially, is not allowing employment. You hear many ministries and departments, they are not getting approvals to employ people. But when audit service goes, they say, go ahead and recruit the people because we need them to protect the public purse. So the point I'm trying to make here is that yes, we can have all these agencies, but if we fail to resource them, it will be very difficult if they can perform for us. Another point I would like to make is what my colleague from Kenya said, the independence of these institutions. At times we want to give independence with the left hand and collect it with the right hand. Yes, we put into our law and say that, well, in the performance of his functions, he is not under the direction and control of anybody. Then we set up a board and put the board just by him or her. And everything that you want to do, the board say, we have to stop you or you have to get our approval. So we may have to think through as Africa. If we don't want independent auditors, we should just say so and put them under people. But we don't come out with laws on one side or arm and say he is not subject to the direction and control of anybody or authority. Then we set up a board and give them a mandate to recruit people for him. I know there are several auditors general over here. How do you do your audit? It is the people you use to do audit. So if you are in charge of recruiting people for me, then you are controlling me, because you can give me volleyball players and say I should use them to play football, or the vice versa. We don't win much that way. If you are playing football, you need footballers, not volleyball players. So that is something we may all have to consider and see whether we need independent auditors or we need dependent ones. What Africa tried to do is that generally we accept the principle and we find a way of undermining it. Because if you go around the world, it is only in Africa that you find this board concept. Well, I must say that not all African countries do, but it is coming up. I was very happy when Kenya, my colleague, had to go to the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court strike away the board and say the board is not needed. Do we have to go there? I don't think we should reach there. It is very simple that either he is independent or he is not independent. One of the issues that I've been raising is a bit provocative, but I'll still say it here, is that I also think that fighting corruption is a very big job because the enterprise is a very big one. And centralizing it is a very difficult decision that many countries have made in this world. In my opinion, I think it is time we decentralize the prosecution of corruption. Like Ghana has done, we have created the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and we have the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. We have the police arm. There are several who are prosecuting corruption. Therefore, it makes it more effective. But I would even like to opine that it would be good to commercialize it, say that the laws will allow private citizens to take that offense to court, to say, you have taken our money, bring it back. And if you want to do that and do it effectively, I think there should be a reward scheme whereby people know that if I follow this case and win it, I will get 20% or 10% of the proceeds. In that case, there may be motivation by individual citizens to follow up those type of cases. I also want to draw attention to the presence of technology in our midst. Let us not forget about technology when we are talking about corruption. Today, corruption has taken a different dimension because of the presence of artificial intelligence, cryptocurrencies, big data, blockchain technology, and all those big words. We can equally take advantage of technology to fight corruption. But if we sit back, we should know that the perpetrators of the act, they are taking advantage of technology. Today, somebody may be sitting here among us and be making payments, and you may not know. So today, you don't have to carry fiscal cash. Therefore, if you want to control or minimize or reduce corruption, we may also have to ensure that we follow up with new technologies and see how it can help us. I think it is time as Africa to start putting our houses or our house in order and ensure that we do the right thing. But I would like to say that anytime this discussion is coming on how to combat corruption, let's invite to the table, as we have done now, auditors general. Because the work we do, we see corruption on daily basis, if not minute by minute basis. Because the work that we do, we encounter it very much, and our sharing of knowledge there will be necessary. And I would like also to say that let's bring in several more other actors, including the civil society, the media, and if it is possible, let's catch them young. Let's start the education against corruption in our schools, so that in our colleges and universities, or we start telling them the harmful effect of corruption. And with that, I think we can get somewhere. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.